Hello, and we're here, Two Guys in the Chick Show.
Hello.
Wednesday. What is it already? June 23rd, huh?
I know. Can you believe it?
I know. I can't believe the year is going so fast. And, obviously it's a tribute show today for Michael Jackson. And I can't believe it's been a year already that he's
astounding.
Gone.
I know.
It's
I can't
quick.
believe it's
Isn't it quick?
happened already. Yeah.
It seems very quick, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, in studio today, Aphrodite Jones. She wrote the book Michael Jackson Conspiracy, and it was you have a very large following. Germany, Chile, all of these people are waiting for you.
Well, I don't have the following. Michael has the following, and I'm just fortunate enough, I guess, that I can be a part of hopefully keeping some kind of legend alive that's a positive image about Michael Jackson, because there's always that percentage of people out there that I call them the doubting Thomases, the doubters, and it doesn't matter. You could show them proof positive evidence of extortion. I did that in my book Michael Jackson Conspiracy, and yet people will say, well, but we're not sure. Yeah. And I do think coming up on 1 year of his death, in my opinion, his comeback was as much about his financial situation, but also more than anything about his children, because he wanted his children to really see who he was.
See him play. And because he hasn't done it in a while. I mean,
they were too little to even have any sense of it.
To realize, except for video. And
and
of course, there's plenty of that. But
I think, on this day, unlike any other on Friday, the idea that everybody's going to be mourning and people are sad, and it's very sad. It's surreal. But then you think about his children and just how much he loved them.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's tough. I mean, because, hey, I grew up with Michael Jackson, and, it's like, of course, I'm in the music business, and, having him part of the music business was, I always couldn't wait to see what he was going to do next. Because whatever it was going to be big, and it was going to be something that, okay, now we got to go ahead and do that.
So you were a Michael Jackson fan?
I was, of course. Not only the music, but I mean on the business end, because there's just so many things that he did. I mean, when Thriller came out.
There was so much more to him than just the music.
Right. And the other thing, too, with Michael, for me and our generation, is he's our age.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody who's your own age, who's performing on stage and rocking it at...
Yeah.
You're 12, he's 12, or you're whatever, you're 10, he's 10, you're 14, he's 14. And, at that time, there were a lot of kid groups, if you recall, the Osmonds, and not a lot, but a few. The Partridge Family. There were a few. But there was...
I was going to say that, but I don't want everybody to think I was a geek.
But the point is that they were actually idols at the time. I mean, I was in love with David Cassidy, who wasn't if they were my age.
That's right.
But... at the end of the day, Michael Jackson was not just somebody who was a kid star or a group star, but defined himself as the superstar of superstars, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying it lightly. I think he went far above what Elvis ever did, and that's because his reach became worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. He couldn't be on any street anywhere, and everybody knew who he was.
I mean, in the jungles of Africa, they knew who he was. Absolutely. And I'm not trying to say it in a bad way.
Right, no.
But this is before the internet. When you wondered, how the hell did these people, Aborigine people in Australia, hear about Michael Jackson? What contact?
Exactly.
Remember, there wasn't an internet. There wasn't satellite. There wasn't cable all those years ago. I remember standing on a line in London in the airport, and somehow I mentioned Michael Jackson, and somebody said, "Oh, Michael Jackson," blah blah, and it was like
they lost their mind.
They were from some country in Africa that I'm thinking to myself.
They know Michael Jackson.
They know, yeah.
But he couldn't be on any street in the world. I mean, you're at a 7-Eleven getting coffee. You're like, wait a minute, that's Michael Jackson. Getting cigarettes in front of me. Not that he smoked, but
right.
You know what I mean? He couldn't be. There was no place he could be.
No, there was no place he could be.
Everybody knew who he was.
And that's the other thing. He got blamed, I think, in his lifetime, and toward the end of his life in particular, for being this outcast and recluse, and his kids were in veils, and he was in disguise. But let's face it, where could he go as himself?
Nowhere.
No, there was nowhere he could go.
His life, and I say this, and I don't say it lightly. He, I don't want to make this a simulation because where we went to school. But he gave his life for us. Realistically, he gave up, and he didn't have to. I mean, it just happened that way. But realistically, as a child star, he had no childhood. so that we could listen to him sing, and as an adult now, by that point, even today, a year after he's dead, I'm doing some research today, and I'm still astounded. I mean, I get chills thinking about it. I was researching the song "I'll Be There," right?
Yeah.
And somehow or another, I thought he was 9 years old when he did the song. He wasn't. He was actually 12 because he was born in '58.
Right. That's the same year I was born. That's how I keep track of him. We have the same. We're the same age.
Right. He was born in '58.
A little older than me.
Yeah. So
not
he was
anymore.
Right. Not anymore. So he did the song when he was 12 in 1970. But in 1971, he became a solo artist and had a whole solo career at 13.
Yep, it's amazing.
And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, here I am, thinking, well, I started a business when I was, whatever. And I'm thinking, 13, he started a solo career. This guy already had a career going,
right?
And he started a whole solo career at 13.
You know what's amazing too is that I met Joe Jackson and dealt with him, which is the best way to phrase it when it comes to Joe Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
2 years ago, was it two? Time's flying so fast. It was either 2 or 3 years ago. Honestly, it was after the book came out, and the book came out in 2007. So I'm having trouble thinking, was it 2007 or 2008? But anyway, it was in Las Vegas, and it was Joe Jackson's birthday party, and I think it was 2008. Any event, I was there and with Joe, and we had a meeting after the party the next following day by ourselves with one of his handlers or whatever it was.
Right. Yeah.
People that ran some kind of music
stuff
for Joe, and this man was so intimidating to me as a complete stranger.
Yeah,
I found him to be extraordinarily intimidating, and I'm thinking, wow, like.
How intimidating was he to his kids?
And then when they were children. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a full-grown adult who's been around the planet and met the presidents of the United States, and not all of them, but I've met Carter, I've met Bush, I've met presidents, and I met this guy, and I was like, oh my God, how do I handle this man?
Yeah, and you're a tough one too.
I'm a tough cookie.
You're a tough one too. You're not,
I'm not easily intimidated.
Michael Jackson was not a biker.
That's it. I mean, he is this little kid with this incredible voice, and he's got his mother who's the Jehovah's Witness. He's practicing following that religiously. And then he's got the other side of the coin, Joe, who's a terror, an intimidator, who's whipping him and doing things like that. That's, not like whipping that, putting welts on the kid, but doing
old school,
exactly, corporal punishment. But more than that, and just insisting, Michael, you're going on the bus. You're going on this tour. You can't stay home. You're not,
Well, he was a commodity at that point. There was nothing to do. He was paying the family bills.
He was paying the bills, but also Joe is a tough man.
Yeah.
And he ruled the roost.
This is the way it was going, and this is what you were doing. This was the ticket.
And that was also old school, but he, above all else, had that notion that, like, he was going to turn his kids into stars. And he didn't care how that was going to happen.
And you know what? I don't know the man, but I got to tell you, he kicked butt. He kicked butt.
He did.
But he really knew how to make it work.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Doesn't make him.
No, it doesn't make him a great father. It does not make him a great father.
He wasn't a great father, and that was the big problem. Is that Michael never had any real time with him as a father. I mean, we just passed Father's Day. Michael wanted to create something called International Children's Day.
Yeah.
He felt that children all around the world, and we don't think about it in America because we're so spoiled here.
Absolutely.
But that there are children all over the world who never really get a holiday. Yes, I mean it's a little kooky. Michael was kooky when it came to ideas, but he really meant it, and he wanted to do an international children's holiday. And I've looked at that comments that he made to Bashir about it many times, and I've seen and I transcribed the outtakes where he talks candidly, and Martin Bashir, of course, didn't include that because he doesn't want Michael Jackson to look like he really was. He had a different agenda,
right?
In my opinion, Martin
Yeah,
Bashir.
and where did he go with that? I mean, he did this whole premise that it was supposed to be, oh, look, I'm doing something nice. And it turned out all he did was stab him in the back.
Right.
It was like one of the only people, that actually let him in.
Right.
Videotape.
He let him in because Bashir had interviewed Princess Diana. So, in Michael's mind, he wants to be royalty. He always had that thing about being royalty.
Right.
And, this was great. He interviewed Princess Diana, and Princess Diana loved.
He's got to be okay.
She gave it, right. She gave him the okay.
In his mind, it was the okay, and he never did. He didn't have a contract. He had no right of refusal on what, of right of edit, final edit. He didn't take any money for it. The money, whatever was going to be made for it, was going to charity for the children.
Oh, my
I mean,
gosh.
he didn't have his managers or anybody involved, so nobody even knew this thing was happening.
Oh, wow.
And he
So
gave
here's
him
this guy following him around and nobody knows why.
unprecedented access
Right.
for months at Neverland with his kids. And that Bashir happened to be in Germany when the whole thing with the baby dangling happened. So, of course, he caught that on
There
tape.
you go.
with his
He
naturally.
was, he was probably the one that caught it.
Well,
Everybody
caught it. Everybody caught it, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
because
paparazzi.
Jackson's standing
Yeah.
outside. But he was there to catch the aftermath, to hear Jackson say, "I would never hurt my baby." And he was like
Right.
questioning, like, in a way, like, "Don't you realize, Michael, that people think you're insane to put your child at risk?" And and
Right,
Michael's
yeah.
there. I wasn't putting my baby at risk. I would never do that.
Right.
They just wanted to see, but you don't see that in the final version of the documentary.
Right.
Just like you don't see Michael talking about the International Children's Holiday he wanted to create. And what he was saying is this. It sounds kooky, but it's partially true. Most children around the world don't get to have a holiday. Yes, there's Christmas. Yes, there's New Year's. Yes, there's whatever.
But like a children's holiday.
But they
specific.
don't. Most children are suffering around the world. There's 3/4 of the planet that's without food and without clean water.
Right.
There's not a holiday that is theirs. I mean, there are cultural holidays, I'm sure,
Sure,
for everybody.
absolutely.
But in his mind, really, what it came back to, and this is-
Something for the kids, not Father's Day, not Mother's Day.
and he talked about that specifically,
for the
Chuck.
kids.
He said shouldn't be Father's Day. There is a Father's Day, there is a Mother's Day, but there's no Children's Day. And this was the part where I listened and watched over and over again and really focused on what Michael said to Bashir. And what he said was, if I had only had one day, like a children's holiday, with my father, things would have been very different for me. So really, that's where it was coming from, that he wanted to do this children's holiday, was that, on a day, and he had this idea, like it would be a day where children could say, the parents would say to the kids, okay, it's Children's Day. Would you like to go to the beach? Would you like to go to the park? What would you like to do today? That was his,
Right.
he never had that with Joe.
Right.
And he never got over it, I don't think.
I wouldn't.
No.
I can't imagine how any kid could, really.
Well, I mean, he was always in a hotel room somewhere.
That's it. And in
I
the
mean,
early
you know.
years, he was in hotel rooms and performing at 3:00 in the morning after the strip clubs.
After the strippers, right?
And I mean, what does that do to a kid's head? And then
Yeah.
seeing
Well,
his brothers screwing around, and apparently,
You would think he would have
indiscretions
he
of
would have
Joe.
had, he would have had women in there every 2 seconds, and apparently that's not Michael Jackson anyway.
But he was a kid. He was 5 years old.
No, I mean as an adult.
Oh,
But
but
he-
by that time he was on a different.
Remember,
yeah.
Michael does everything pretty young, so you never know.
No, I don't think.
No,
I think
I
I
it
don't
was-
know. I haven't watched the entire Martin Bashir documentary, but I did watch a small portion of it at the beginning, and it starts off very nice,
Right.
and shows him as this really nice person. And he actually said in the beginning that his favorite things to do were climb trees and have water balloon fights, which I
Michael.
thought was the absolute cutest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And this was only a few years ago.
Right.
Right.
You know.
And right, it was in 2002 that he taped that, or 2003, and then the allegations came in 2004. It aired, I think, early 2003. They taped it in 2002. So we're talking about 7 years ago that he was a 42-year-old man, or a 43-year-old man, whatever he was, 42,
Right.
saying my favorite thing in the world to do is climb a tree and have balloon fights. And he really meant it. He didn't say it in a cavalier way.
No, he was very
No.
genuine about it, from what I could see.
He loved
The guy had a Ferris wheel in his backyard. I mean,
and that's the other thing. People have this misconception about Neverland being a fairyland or a Disneyland, and the truth is, Neverland Valley Ranch is a 2,700-acre ranch. And I've been there, and I spent a lot of time at those gates, all through the trial and subsequent to the trial. And you know what? 2,700 acres. If you think about the size of that, in the Santa Barbara Hills is one of the most idyllic places in the world. And
Yeah.
I have aerial photos of the whole Neverland, and I've actually included it in the new version of the book, Michael Jackson Conspiracy book, to show that the racetrack, the amusement park, the zoo, which were the three things he had, were all separated, okay? And they weren't near the house. And there wasn't, other than that, it was all beautiful acreage. And those things were very well taken care of. They were very well, kept up by a staff that Michael kept for all these things. And they were there to have kids from the inner city
come
and have a day of joy. I mean, yes, they were there for Michael the kid.
Right. Yeah.